English time. Real English for real life. Listen, speak, and grow.
Hello, wonderful listeners. Welcome back to English Time Podcast, where we use clear, natural English to talk about real life. I'm Henry.
And I'm Emma. We're so glad you're here with us today. Maybe you're walking, making dinner, or finally sitting down after a long day. No matter how you're listening, thank you for spending this time with us.
We really appreciate it. So, how are you doing today? You sound a little tired.
You caught me. I didn't sleep very well last night. But I had a slow morning. I made breakfast and enjoyed a few quiet minutes before the day started.
That sounds peaceful. My morning was a little different.
What happened?
My mother called before breakfast, and you know what it usually means when family calls that early.
Oh, let me guess. Some family news, advice you didn't ask for, and a question you didn't want to answer.
All of the above. She wanted to know why I still hadn't replied to my cousin's wedding invitation.
Wait, all that over one wedding invitation?
I wish it were just one. I've got 4 wedding invitations sitting on my desk. 4 weddings, 3 different cities. Between travel, hotels, and gifts, I'm already doing the math, and my bank account is literally crying.
That adds up fast.
And the invitations weren't even the main reason she called. Right before hanging up, she asked, "So, when are you getting married?"
There it is. That question. It's only a few words, but it carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, it can make you feel like everyone else is moving forward while you're still standing in the same place.
You know, I think we just found today's topic.
Marriage?
Marriage. And I don't mean just the wedding. I mean the life 2 people share after the guests go home. How they manage money, divide daily responsibilities, and deal with conflict.
So the part nobody puts in the wedding video.
Yeah, exactly. Because in real life, long-term relationships usually come down to 3 key actions: understand, share, and repair. Understand what the other person is really feeling, share the weight of daily life, and repair the connection when something goes wrong.
That sounds simple when you say it like that, but I guess those 3 things become pretty difficult when real life gets messy.
They do, because love is easy to talk about when everything is going well. The harder part is what happens when 2 people are tired, stressed, or disappointed.
And this topic gives us a great chance to look at some natural ways to express pressure, responsibility, and honest conversations in English.
Absolutely. If you enjoy learning English through real topics like this, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps other learners find us.
All right, let's start with that pressure from my mom's question.
So, what did you actually tell her?
Honestly, I hate that question. I usually just laugh and say, "We'll see," but that never ends the conversation.
Of course not. Someone always follows up with, "You're not getting any younger."
Exactly. You sit down for dinner and somehow it turns into a discussion about your entire future.
A lot of people know that feeling. Friends get married, relatives start asking questions, and there are always new wedding photos on social media.
After a while, you start wondering, am I falling behind?
There's actually a name for that feeling. It's called the social clock.
The idea that life should happen in a certain order at a certain time.
Exactly. Finish school, find a stable job, get married, start a family. No one officially gives you that schedule, but you still feel the pressure when your life doesn't follow it.
I felt that way last year when several friends got married one after another in just over a year. I was genuinely happy for them, but afterward, I started looking at my own life differently.
What were you thinking?
I started thinking maybe I should take relationships more seriously. Maybe I need to hurry. But it wasn't that I suddenly wanted to get married. I just didn't want to feel like everyone else was moving ahead without me.
That's actually a big difference, though. Wanting to get married is one thing, just wanting the pressure to stop is another.
Yeah, and when people mix those 2 feelings together, they might jump into something huge before they're ready.
Exactly. They take that massive step just because they feel like they're falling behind.
The pressure might fade away for a bit, but you still have to live with that choice.
This is a lot like learning English. You hear someone speak fluently, and suddenly you feel like you're falling behind.
Even when you're making real progress, their fluency can make your own progress feel invisible. The social clock does the same thing. It makes you feel late before you stop and ask what you actually want.
So maybe the real question isn't, when am I getting married? Maybe it's, why do I even want to get married?
Right. Am I choosing this person, or am I just choosing to feel less behind?
And am I actually ready for the life that comes after the wedding?
Because being ready for marriage isn't about reaching the right age. It's about whether two people can understand each other, share responsibility, and repair the connection when something goes wrong.
Exactly. So let's start with the first one, understanding. And by understanding, I don't just mean listening to the words someone says. Sometimes two people can look at the exact same situation and see completely different things.
Like what? What does understanding actually look like when two people are building a life together?
Money is probably the most common example. Think about something like buying a new couch or making another big purchase. One person says, we can afford it, so why not enjoy it? The other says, do we really need to spend that much?
And 5 minutes later, they're not even talking about the purchase anymore.
Exactly. It quickly turns into, you're always wasting money or you're always trying to control me.
So sometimes the argument isn't really about the money, it's about what the money represents.
Right. For one person, money in the bank might mean security. It can mean feeling safer if something goes wrong, like losing a job.
While for someone else, money might mean freedom. They work hard, so they want to enjoy some of what they earn instead of saving everything for later.
Yeah, one person wants to protect the money, while the other may feel that all that caution is stopping them from enjoying life. If they only focus on the amount, they miss the bigger picture entirely.
But wait, aren't we overthinking it a bit? Sometimes a couch is just a couch.
Absolutely. Not every disagreement comes with a deep psychological backstory.
Thank goodness, because I was starting to think I needed a therapist just to buy a coffee table.
No, definitely not. The point isn't to overanalyze every little thing. It's to notice when a conversation keeps going in circles.
That makes sense. When you realize you're stuck in the same loop, what do you do?
It helps to pause, stop defending your position, and ask, help me understand why this matters to you.
That sounds completely different from, why are you making such a big deal out of this?
Completely different. The first one shows genuine curiosity. The second one immediately puts the other person on the defensive.
And you can really hear that difference in English. The vocabulary is simple, but the way you phrase the question changes the tone completely.
Definitely. Compare, why do you care so much, with, help me understand where you're coming from.
One feels like an attack.
And the other feels like an invitation to talk.
So I guess that's part of reading between the lines. You're paying attention to what might be underneath the words, not just the words themselves.
Right, but there's a trap here. Reading between the lines doesn't mean trying to read someone's mind.
How so?
Telling someone, I know exactly why you're acting this way, probably isn't going to go over well in the middle of an argument.
Yeah, announcing that during a fight might actually make things worse.
Exactly. Instead of guessing, ask something more open, like, what worries you most about this?
That gives them a chance to explain themselves in their own words.
And once you understand what actually matters to both people, you can start looking for practical solutions.
Like setting a budget where each person has some personal spending money they can use without having to check with the other person.
Exactly. They protect the money they share while still giving each other some freedom. That's what meeting halfway can look like.
So meeting halfway isn't about giving up, it's about finding a compromise both people can live with.
Precisely. Understanding doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. It just means being able to say, I see it differently, but I understand why it matters to you.
And honestly, sometimes just feeling understood can change the whole tone of a conversation.
Exactly. So that's understanding, seeing what's really going on underneath the words. But understanding alone doesn't solve everything. You also have to figure out how to share the weight of daily life.
And that brings us to the second part, sharing responsibility.
Right, because two people can understand each other really well and still end up with a relationship that feels unfair.
How does that happen?
That's where things get tricky. On the surface, everything may look equal, while one person is quietly carrying much more of the weight.
I've actually heard people say something like this. I love my partner, but sometimes I feel like I'm the only adult in the house.
That's a really common feeling. And it's usually not about the big stuff. It's the small, invisible things that pile up until they become too much.
Like what?
Like, who figures out what to eat for dinner every single night? Who notices you're about to run out of garbage bags? Or who keeps track of family birthdays and buys the gifts?
Wow, I like how you just said that. You used 3 really useful everyday phrases there. Figure out, run out of, and keep track of. Those are expressions people use all the time. And honestly, in a lot of relationships, it's the same person doing all of that.
And the other person might not even realize it's happening because none of those things ever become a problem. They get handled before they blow up.
Blow up. That's another really useful phrase here. It means a small issue can suddenly turn into a big fight. But that doesn't happen because someone is quietly keeping an eye on everything.
Exactly. All that constant noticing, planning, and remembering is what people call the mental load.
I've heard that term before, but I think I'm only now getting what it actually means. It's not about who does more dishes, it's about who has to think about the dishes in the first place.
Yes, and here's where it gets frustrating. The person doing all that invisible work often hears, "Why didn't you just ask me? I would have helped."
On the surface, that sounds like a fair point.
It does, but "just ask me" still leaves one person responsible for noticing what needs to be done and planning how to do it.
So the task may be shared, but the mental load still isn't.
Exactly. Real shared responsibility means noticing what needs attention and taking ownership of it, not always waiting to be asked.
Taking ownership means treating something as your responsibility and making sure it gets done. Okay, I have to admit, I've definitely said, "Just let me know if you need help," more times than I can count.
And most people mean well when they say that. But there's a real difference between offering to help and actually taking something off someone's plate.
Because "let me know" still means I'm waiting for the other person to notice what needs to be done first.
Exactly. But when you take something off someone's plate, you take responsibility for the whole thing. They don't have to plan it, keep track of it, or check whether it got done.
So it's less about helping with a task and more about taking ownership of it from start to finish.
Right. And once you start talking about sharing responsibility, another question comes up. What does fair actually look like?
For a long time, I thought fair meant splitting everything right down the middle, 50-50 every single day.
It sounds fair in theory, but real life doesn't stay that balanced. One week you might be sick. Another week your partner might be under huge pressure at work.
So sometimes one person has to carry more for a while.
Exactly. The important thing is whether the balance feels fair over time.
So constantly keeping score probably misses the point.
It does. If you're always counting who cooked more meals or ran more errands, the relationship can start to feel like a competition.
And I guess the real danger is when the balance stays unfair for too long.
That's when resentment can start to build.
That quiet anger you carry when the same unfair pattern keeps happening.
Exactly. And because it builds slowly, the final argument can be about something tiny. Maybe the trash is already overflowing, and one person walks right past it without taking it out, and suddenly there's a huge fight.
Even though the trash isn't really the problem.
Right, it's just the trigger. The real frustration may have been building for weeks because one person felt unsupported or unseen.
Which means sharing responsibility can't be something you agree on once and then forget about.
Exactly. Life changes, so the balance has to change too.
That's where staying on the same page matters.
Right. Being on the same page means both people understand how things are going and what each person is carrying.
Sometimes that might be as simple as asking, "Does the way we're splitting things right now still feel fair to you?"
And that small question can bring a problem into the open before the frustration turns into resentment.
So shared responsibility isn't about rigid rules or keeping everything perfectly equal.
Right. By rigid rules, we mean fixed rules that never change no matter what's happening in your life. What matters is that both people pay attention, take ownership, and adjust when the balance starts to feel off.
And even when two people do all of that well, they're still going to get things wrong sometimes.
Of course, no relationship gets everything right all the time. People get stressed, they forget things, they hurt each other.
Which brings us to the third action, repair.
Exactly. Repair is about what happens after something has gone wrong.
So a healthy relationship isn't one with zero conflict. It's one where two people know what to do afterward.
Learning English is similar. Fluency doesn't mean never making a mistake. It means noticing it, correcting it, and keeping the conversation going.
So in both cases, progress comes from knowing how to recover.
Right, and that's where a lot of people struggle. They confuse ending an argument with actually fixing the problem.
So instead of actually dealing with the problem, they just sweep it under the rug?
Exactly. To sweep something under the rug means you avoid dealing with the problem and pretend it isn't there. You might act extra nice the next morning and hope the tension somehow disappears.
But it doesn't really disappear.
No, it usually stays there underneath, and if the same thing keeps happening, it can come back in the next argument.
So what does real repair actually look like?
Let me give you a simple example. A couple I know had agreed that the husband would be home by 7 for dinner.
Sounds pretty normal.
His wife finished work, went home, made dinner, and planned her evening around that time.
And I'm guessing he wasn't home by 7.
Not even close. A meeting ran late, and by the time he got home, it was after 9.
Did he message her?
That was the problem. He didn't.
So she had been waiting for him for over 2 hours?
Pretty much. And when he finally walked in, he said, "Sorry, work was crazy."
I mean, that sounds like an apology.
Technically, yes, but he was focused on explaining why he was late. He hadn't really stopped to think about what the evening had been like for her.
So from his point of view, the problem was, I got stuck at work.
Exactly. But from her point of view, it was, "I planned my evening around you, waited for you, and you didn't even think to send me a message?"
So the real problem wasn't the dinner.
No, it was the feeling underneath it. My time didn't seem important enough for you to let me know.
And that takes us right back to understanding.
It does. You can't really repair something until you understand what actually hurt the other person.
So what happened next?
The next morning, he tried again. This time he said, "I'm sorry I didn't message you. You planned your evening around me and I left you waiting. I should have told you as soon as I knew I was going to be late."
That already feels completely different.
Because now he's not just explaining himself, he's recognizing the impact his actions had on her.
And taking responsibility for his part.
Exactly. Then he added, "If this happens again, I'll call or message you before 7.
So a real apology isn't just, I'm sorry. It's more like, I understand what I did. I understand how it affected you, and here's what I'll do differently.
Exactly. But even that isn't the end of repair.
There's more?
You have to follow through.
Meaning you actually do what you said you were going to do.
Right. A few weeks later, he had to stay late at work again. This time, he messaged her before 7.
That sounds like such a small thing.
It is, but small actions can matter a lot when they show that something has actually changed.
So the apology started the repair, but following through showed that he meant it.
Exactly. That's why actions speak louder than words. A sincere apology can open the door, but consistent change is what rebuilds trust.
And I guess that also explains why something like, I'm sorry you feel that way, usually doesn't work.
Definitely not.
Because you're talking about the other person's reaction instead of taking responsibility for your own actions.
Exactly. And that can immediately put the other person on the defensive.
So repair isn't about finding the perfect sentence that makes the argument disappear.
No. It's about understanding the hurt, taking responsibility for your part, and then showing through your actions that something is going to change.
You know what I'm noticing? Repair actually brings us back to the first two actions.
How so?
To repair something properly, you first have to understand why the other person was hurt.
That's the first action.
And then you have to take responsibility for your part in it.
Which connects to the second.
So repair isn't really separate from understanding and shared responsibility.
Exactly. Repair is where understanding and shared responsibility come together in a difficult moment.
I like that. Understanding helps you see what's happening beneath the surface. Sharing responsibility helps you build a life that feels fair, and repair helps you come together when something goes wrong.
Because eventually something will.
Of course, you can love someone and still disappoint them. You can have good intentions and still make a bad decision.
Which means the goal isn't to avoid every conflict.
It's what you do after the conflict that matters.
Do you try to understand what really happened?
Do you take responsibility for your part?
And does anything actually change afterward?
Understand, share, repair.
3 simple actions.
But not 3 things you learn once.
3 things you keep doing.
And I think that gives me a much better answer for my mother the next time she asks when I'm getting married.
What are you going to tell her?
I'll tell her I'm not rushing into marriage just because everyone else seems to be moving ahead. I'd rather be in a relationship where we know how to understand each other, share the weight, and repair things when we get them wrong.
Well, that's definitely a better answer than "we'll see."
Unfortunately, it's also much longer.
Just don't give her the whole episode.
No promises.
Before we go, let's open today's confidence kit.
We're going back to 4 moments from today's conversation and looking at the English more closely.
Let's start with understanding. During the sofa discussion, we use the phrase read between the lines.
To read between the lines means to notice a meaning or feeling that someone has not said directly.
But that isn't exactly the same as understanding where someone is coming from.
Right. If you read between the lines, you work out the hidden message. If you understand where someone is coming from, you understand the reasons behind their opinion, even if you don't agree with it.
For example, her message said fine, but I read between the lines and knew she was upset.
And if you want to show that you understand someone's point of view, you could say, I still disagree with your decision, but I understand where you're coming from.
The next useful expression is put someone on the defensive.
It means making someone feel attacked so they start protecting themselves instead of listening.
For example, a question like, why do you care so much, can put someone on the defensive.
A softer question, such as, help me understand why this matters to you, keeps the conversation open.
Now let's move to the mental load.
The mental load is the invisible work of noticing, remembering, and planning what needs to be done.
This helps explain why "let me know if you need help" may sound supportive, but still not be enough.
Exactly. That sentence still leaves the other person in charge of noticing the problem and telling you what to do.
A more active sentence is, I'll handle dinner tonight. To handle something means to take care of it.
I'll take ownership of dinner this week goes even further. It means you will notice what is needed, make the plan, and see the whole task through.
And if you take something off someone's plate, you remove both the task and the responsibility of thinking about it.
For example, I'll plan the meals and buy the groceries this week. I want to take that off your plate.
Carrying more of the mental load over time can lead to difficult feelings. So next, let's look at 2 useful words for describing them: frustration and resentment.
Frustration is usually connected to a problem happening now. You might say, I felt frustrated when he forgot to take out the trash.
Resentment is deeper. It often builds slowly when the same unfair pattern keeps happening.
You could say, resentment had been building for months because she felt that she was carrying everything alone.
Then one small event, such as the overflowing trash, can become the trigger.
A trigger is the event that causes a strong reaction, but it may not be the real reason behind all that emotion.
Finally, let's look at the language of repair. One important expression is follow through.
To follow through means to do what you promised or complete the action you started.
It is different from follow up. To follow up means to contact someone again or check what happened after an earlier conversation.
For example, he promised to message before 7, and this time he followed through.
But you might say, the next morning he followed up with his manager about the meeting.
We also heard a sentence that sounds like an apology, but usually doesn't feel like one. I'm sorry you feel that way.
That sentence focuses on the other person's reaction. It doesn't clearly take responsibility for what you did.
A stronger apology usually names 3 things: the action, the impact, and the change.
I'm sorry I didn't message you. I left you waiting and I should have told you sooner. Next time, I'll let you know as soon as I know I'm going to be late.
That structure works with a partner, a friend, a family member, or a colleague.
Now, choose one line from today and make it part of your own English.
You might use, I understand where you're coming from, but I see it differently. Or, I'll take ownership of this.
And if you need to repair something, name what you did, explain the impact, and say what you'll change.
You can say your sentence out loud, write it down, or share it with us in the comments.
And if today's conversation gave you something to think about, send this episode to someone you'd like to talk it through with.
Thanks for staying with us all the way to the end. I'm sure your English has grown a little stronger today.
Take care of yourself.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.